So now that we repeated the basics about services and dependency injection, before we dive deeper, I want to finish this tasks service here, and I want to make sure that we can now also change the status of one of our tasks. Because we have this drop down here on those tasks that allow us to pick a different status, and we then also have a filter that should allow us to view different tasks depending on their status. So in the tasks service, I'll add a new method. Update task status sounds like a fitting name. And I expect to get the ID of the task, which will be of type string. And then also the new status that should be set. And that will be of type task status, which is a type that must be imported from the task model file, because there it is such a union type, a custom union type in the end, where I allow 3 clearly defined string values as possible values when that type is assigned. So that is my new status parameter. And then inside of update task status, and this should be update task status, not update tasks. So inside of this method, I then will reach out to my tasks and again call the update method that is built in and pass that function to update, where I get my old tasks, and the new tasks which I then want to return are the old tasks on which I call map. Map is a built-in method that can be executed on arrays, which will produce a new array. Map then also takes a function as an argument, and this function will then be executed on every item in that tasks array, so on every task. And the task will be passed in as an argument to this function here automatically. Well, and then I want to return an updated task here. And for that, I'll check if the ID of the task I'm currently looking at in that old tasks array, if that is equal to the task ID I'm getting here as a parameter. If those IDs are equal, I want to return a new task object, because again, you wanna avoid mutating arrays of objects directly in memory. Instead, you should try to create new objects and arrays and change those. So here I am creating a new object. And I'm copying all the old task data with the spread operator into this new object, before I then overwrite the status property and set that to the new status value I'm receiving as a parameter. Alternatively, if the IDs do not match, I'll return the unchanged task. And here I'm not creating a copy because I'm not changing anything about that task. So this then updates the tasks array by, in the end, replacing the old tasks array with a new one, where for one task where the IDs do match, the task item will have been replaced. And that is all. Now, since we're working with signals, the information that the data changed will be passed to the interested components automatically. But of course, here in the tasks list component, I still need to adjust the code a little bit, because we do have that filter here, where users can select for which tasks they want to filter. So therefore, in that tasks list component, I'll actually change tasks here and set this to be a computed value with help of the computed function that is imported from Angular Core, which is a signal feature, so a feature related to signals. Because computed will return a new signal, but it will return a new computed signal, which depends on other signals, and which will be recomputed whenever any of the dependent signals change. For that, computed takes a function as an input, a function that gets no arguments. But in that function, I then want to filter my tasks from the tasks service based on the selected filter that has been set here. And actually, we can convert selected filter to a private property here, because I'll only use it here in this class. But that's not too important. Instead, what is important is that in this computed function here, we, for example, use a switch statement to switch the value that is stored in the selected filter signal. And since I'm using a signal here in this function, which I'm passing to computed, Angular will register this and set up a subscription and recompute that value whenever the selected filter value changes. So here I'm switching on that value that's stored in that signal. And in case the value is all, which is one of the values that can be chosen here in the template, in case the value is all, I want to return this tasks service all tasks, which I guess makes sense. If we're requesting to see all tasks, I want to return all tasks. And this is another signal being read, so now computed will recalculate also when all tasks changes. So it will recalculate either if the selected filter value changes or if the all tasks value changes. So that is one case, but it's of course not the only one. The second case is that the user selected this open option. Therefore here my case is open. And here I return this tasks service, all tasks, but now I want to filter those tasks. And for that we can call the built-in filter method on that value that is returned by all tasks. Since all tasks will return an array of tasks, we can call filter on that, since that's a built-in method that can be called on any array. And filter then takes a function as an input, which will be executed for every array item. And we should return true here if we want to keep that item in the new array that will be returned by filter, or false if we want to drop it, so that we can create a filtered array. Well, and here I simply want to check if the task status is equal to open. Because if the case is open, I only want to get the tasks where the status is open. The next case is that the user selected in progress. So that's the next case I want to handle. And I'll then copy the code here from the open case, because here I also want to filter my tasks, but now I'm looking for the in progress status. And then here, the last case I want to handle is that the user selected done. So done it is. And in that case, again, I want to filter my tasks and look for done. And then we should also register a default case here, which actually should be to return all tasks. Like this. Hence, we can of course also get rid of this all case here, since that's our default case now. So with that, the tasks signal will be recomputed when the selected filter changes or when the tasks change. Well, and with that, with those changes made, if you save everything again and you add some new tasks, like this, you can now switch that filter. And for example, at the moment, I don't have any in progress tasks, but I do have open tasks. So we can do that. And I now also want to make sure that we can change the task status. And for that, we're almost done, since we did add this update task status method here in the tasks service. But we of course also must make sure that this method gets triggered. So in the task item component, we also need to inject that service so that there, when onChange task status is called, we can trigger this method in the service. And therefore here we can again either use the constructor or this inject function for injecting the service. And I'll go for the inject function. So I'll call inject here, just as before. Import it from Angular core, and inject the tasks service, which is imported from the tasks service file. And with that injected and added, here in onChangeTaskStatus, after going through that switch statement here, I want to call this tasks service update task status and pass the task ID, which I'm getting as an argument here, as well as the new status to that method. Well, and with that, if we now add new tasks here, like this, we should be able to also switch that status. And as you can tell, that seems to work. And now the filter also proves that this is all set up correctly.